It was afternoon and I was in my box on the sea somewhere off the south coast of Brobdingnag. A seabird had dropped the box in the sea and, although the box had not broken, I did not know how long it could stay floating on the waves. The carpenter had done a good job, but I could see some water coming through the edges of the front door. I tried to stop the water by putting blankets across the edges. Next, I tried to lift the roof of my house, as the giants could do so easily. I thought I would be safer sitting on the top of the box where there was air, and where perhaps someone would see me. But it was too heavy and impossible for me to move. Elle had now been on the sea for 4 hours and knew that it would not be very long before I drowned or died of cold. The box had a door on one side, and windows on 2 other sides. On the fourth side, however, there were 2 metal loops, which the carpenter had put on so that servants could carry the box easily by attaching them to a rope. I thought I heard a noise from this side of the box, then felt the box begin to move faster through the sea. This gave me hope, although I couldn't think what was happening. The box also had a small hole in one side to let in air. I put my mouth close to this hole and shouted for help as loudly as I could, and I repeated this in all the many different languages that I could speak. Then I took my handkerchief and tied it to a pole, which I put through the hole and waved, so that if any boat were near, sailors would see it and realize I was inside the box. Nothing more happened for an hour, but the box continued to move through the sea until there was another soft jolt. The box had hit something hard, but on the side which had no windows, so I could not see what it was. I guessed that it was a rock, but found that the box was now moving even faster than before. A loud noise came from the roof, then I felt the box being lifted out of the sea. As it was lifted up, I put the pole with the handkerchief through the hole again and waved it, calling loudly, "If you can hear me, help. I'm inside." I did not expect to hear a reply, but I was extremely pleased when I heard a voice shout back, "Who's there?" Now I could hear steps on the roof and a voice called out, speaking in English, "If anyone's inside, speak clearly." "It's me. I'm an Englishman who's had a terrible adventure," I answered in an excited voice. "Please, I need to be rescued from a very dangerous situation." "Don't worry, you're safe now," the voice said. "Your box has been lifted out of the water and is now held by ropes behind our ship. I'll ask the ship's carpenter to come and make a hole in the roof to get you out." "That's not necessary," I called. "Just ask one of your sailors to pick up the box and carry it onto your ship, where you can lift up the roof." I could hear people laughing. They thought I was joking, or perhaps they thought I was mad. I only realized later that these people were the same size as me and could not lift the enormous box. Soon the carpenter made a hole that was large enough to put down a ladder. I climbed out of the box at last, pleased to breathe fresh air, and they helped me onto their ship. As I walked, the sailors all looked at me in amazement and wanted to ask me 1,000 questions. But I found that they all looked so small and strange that I did not want to answer. The captain of the ship, Mr. Thomas Wilcox, watched me as I arrived. He realized that I was very weak and probably ill. He took me inside and sat me down on a bed before giving me a hot drink. "You're safe now, but you need to rest," he said kindly. "Thank you, yes, I'm very tired," I replied. But before I went to sleep, I said, "Listen. I have some important things in the box that I don't want to lose, valuable furniture and blankets and some other souvenirs." "I see," he said, with a strange look. The captain, too, perhaps thought I was mad, but agreed to my request and asked some sailors to find these things inside the box. I later found that the sailors took all my things out of the box, but because the furniture was fastened to the floor, they badly damaged the cupboard, table and chairs when they removed them, which made me very angry. When they had taken everything out, they cut the ropes and let the box fall back into the sea, and it quickly sank. While I was asleep, I dreamt of Brobdingnag and all the adventures that had happened to me there. I woke up several hours later and I felt much better. It was about 8 o'clock in the evening, and when the captain saw that I was awake, he ordered me some food, thinking I must be very hungry. He was a very kind man and spoke softly and gently to me as I ate. "It's lucky we found you," he said. "Earlier today at about 12 o'clock, I saw something in the sea far away. I thought it was a boat, and because our ship has become low on food, I decided to go towards it and ask if we could buy some sea biscuits. When I saw that it was not a sailing boat, I sent out some of my crew in a smaller boat to see what it was. They soon returned, and told me that they'd been frightened because they'd seen a big house floating on the sea. I laughed at them and decided I'd go in the small boat to have a look for myself. He stopped to drink, and then continued, "We took some rope and rowed back to look. When I saw the house myself, I couldn't believe it. We rode all around your box and saw its windows and door, then we saw the loops on one side. The sea was calm, so we easily tied our ropes to the loops and I asked my men to row the box back to our ship." "So that explains my rescue," I said. "Yes. It took some time to pull the house to our ship, where I ordered the crew to tie on more strong ropes and to pull the box out of the sea. The sailors said this was very difficult and they'd only raised it a little when I saw your handkerchief appear through the hole in the side. We realized that someone or something was locked inside the box. So now, tell me, how did you find yourself in the strange wooden house?" I answered him with my own question, "Have you or any of your men seen any enormous birds in the area while I was sleeping?" "We've seen some birds, yes, but none of them seemed to be very big." "Perhaps because the birds were some distance away," I suggested. The captain said he did not understand what I meant. I then asked the captain how far we were from land. "We're about 500 kilometers from any country," he said. "No, you must be wrong. I'd been in the box for only a few hours after it was dropped into the sea," I said. I could see that the captain thought I was very strange and very possibly mad. I tried to explain that if I had been strange before, I was now feeling much better after my food and a long sleep. Now the captain looked very serious. "Look, you've told me some very strange things that I cannot believe. I think I know who you are. I think you're a criminal, who'd been put inside the box to be punished. If this is correct, I'll take you to the nearest port and leave you there." I pleaded with the captain to believe my story, which I told him he would soon hear. Then I explained all that had happened to me from the day I had left England to the moment he had found me in the box. The captain could see that I was very serious, and looked at me carefully. "It's possible that your story is true," he said. "To be certain, however, I want you to show some of the things that you say you've kept in your box." The captain asked a sailor to bring the cupboard that they had taken from my box and I opened it using the key which was in my pocket. I then showed the captain all the souvenirs that I had collected from my time in Brobdingnag, a comb which I had made from a dried leaf, the sting of a bee which was the size of a knife, some pins and needles the size of small swords, and a ring which the queen had given me and was large enough to wear on my head. I also showed him my trousers, which were made from the hair of a mouse. "Here, you can keep this ring as a present," I said, holding one out for him. "Thank you, but that won't be necessary," he said. The only thing the captain seemed to want was a tooth, which one of the queen's servants had removed by the palace surgeon. It was about 30 centimeters long and the captain could not believe it. The captain then asked me why I spoke in such a loud voice. "Are the people of Brobdingnag a little deaf?" he asked. "No, they aren't deaf, but I was so small in their land that I had to speak loudly to be heard, just as a man has to shout from a window in a building to a person who's in the street 2 floors below." I then explained that, when I got onto his boat, everyone and everything looked so small that I found myself laughing. Although it was very kind of him to give me some food, the plates and cups that I ate and drank from seemed so little that I thought I would never be full. When my story was told, the captain smiled. "Well, now I understand why you behaved so strangely when you arrived on my ship. I believe your story. In fact, I'm very excited by it. You should tell the newspapers as soon as you return to England, so that the world will know about your amazing adventures." "I'll think about that," I said, but I was not sure this was a good idea. The captain explained that his ship was on its way back from Vietnam and that we would soon reach the south of Africa. The boat stopped at a few ports on our journey to buy food and fresh water, but I did not want to leave the ship, as I felt safe there. Finally, on 3rd of June 1706, We arrived back at the south coast of England, about 9 months after I had left Brobdingnag. Before I left the ship, I told the captain that I wanted him to keep my things until I could pay him for all that he had done for me, but the captain refused and said that he had been happy to help. He even gave me some money so that I could hire a horse to ride back to my home. "You've been very kind to me," I said to him. "One day, you must visit me in my home. Until then, goodbye." It was a long ride back to my home. I went down long roads and looked at all the people, the houses, the trees and the cows in the fields. They all looked so small that I began to think that I was back in Lilliput. Every time I saw a person in the road in front of me, I shouted at them, "Look out! Here I come!" Because I was sure that I would step on them, like a giant. Many of the people thought I was very rude and did not realize I was trying to be kind. Eventually I arrived back at my house. A servant opened the door and I bent down to go inside, believing the door to be so small that I feared I would otherwise hit my head. I was very happy to see my family again, although I told my wife that she had not been feeding my children enough because they were all too small. I found it difficult to look at them because I had only looked up to speak to the giants of Brobdingnag, and now I had to look down. Like the captain on the ship, Thomas Wilcox, my wife thought that I was behaving very strangely and that perhaps I was mad after my long journey at sea. It took me a long time to see our world as it really is, a land where everything is the right size for me to live in. Now, however, my story is nearly told. I was back in England and happy to be with the family I loved. "Gulliver, you must promise me that you'll never go abroad again," my wife said to me. "Surely there's a job that can pay you enough money in this country?" I agreed that my adventures were now finally complete.